Well, hello, Neighborhood Book Club. Welcome back. It's so great to see everyone back once again for another episode of Read Along, Read Aloud series. We are reading Matt Haig's The Midnight Library. And this is episode 4, so if you haven't seen episodes 1, 2, and 3, go ahead and check those out. A brief review before we get started. When we first began episode 3, Nora takes a chance. She found out what the library is. And she's a bit skeptical, confused. Here's my question. I want to know what you think of Nora so far. Go ahead and give me your comments. Anything you have to say, anything on your mind. I've been wondering that. I've been wondering what everybody has been thinking of Nora Seeds. Anyway, so she's getting informed from the librarian, Miss Elm, of what the Midnight Library actually is. And it is a magical place, as we know, a library in a space, distance, time continuum between life and death. And its time is just frozen at 12 o'clock. 000000. 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds. And inside of this library is a plethora, infinite amount of books. And each book contains a variation of a possible life. It is quite quirky. It is quite, I don't know if I compared it to the Grand Budapest Hotel. And the more I read, I'm almost thinking it would make a nice cult classic. Interesting. Very interesting indeed. But yeah, go ahead and let me know what you think of Nora Seeds. So she's getting informed. Each book is a variation of a possible life, and she takes a shot at changing her life, right? And she decided to go back to time and a different variation of her life when she was still married to Dan. It wasn't exactly what she thought, was it? No. She was quite disappointed, and as we all know, as soon as disappointment sets in, that is when, I guess you can say, that life ends. And she returned back to the library. Didn't work out. So here we are now. Episode 4, page 60, if you're following along, which I hope you are, and grab your books. Matt Haig's The Midnight Library. It's a lot of fun to read along and immerse yourself inside of the experience. Chapter 60. The penultimate update Nora had posted before she found herself between life and death. Do you ever think, how did I end up here? Like you are in a maze and totally lost, and it's all your fault because you are the one who made every turn? And you know that there are many routes you could have helped you out, because you hear all the people on the outside of that maze who made it through, and they are laughing and smiling, and sometimes you get a glimpse of them through the hedge, a fleeting shape through the leaves, and they seem so damn happy to have made it, and you don't resent them, but you do resent yourself for not having the ability to work it all out. Do you? Or is this maze just for me? P.S. My cat died. The chessboard. The shelves of the Midnight Library were quite still again, as if their movement had never, ever been a possibility. Nora sensed they were in a different portion of the library now. Not a different room as such, as there seemed to be only one infinite vast room. It was difficult to tell if she really was in a different part of the library, as the books were still green, though she seemed closer to the corridor than she had been. And from here, she could see a glimpse of something new through one of the stacks. An office desk and computer, like a basic makeshift open-plan office positioned in the corridor between the aisles. Miss Elm wasn't at the office desk. She was sat at the low wooden table right there in front of Nora, and she was playing chess. It was different to how I imagined, said Nora. Miss Elm looked like she was halfway through the game. It's hard to predict, isn't it? She asked, looking blankly in front of her as she moved the black bishop across the board to take a white pawn. The things that will make us happy. Miss Elm rotated the chessboard through 180 degrees. She was, as it appeared, playing against herself. Yes, said Nora, it is. But what happens to her, to me? How does she end up? How do I know? I only know today. I know a lot about today. But I don't know what happens tomorrow. But she'll be there in the bathroom, and she won't know how she got there. And have you never walked into a room and wondered what you came in for? Have you never forgotten what you just did? Have you never blanked out or misremembered that you were just doing something? Yes, but I was there for half an hour in that life. And that other you won't know that. She will remember what you just did and said. But as if she did and said then. Nora let out a deep exhale. Dan wasn't like that. People change, said Miss Elm, still looking at the chessboard. Her hand lingered over a bishop. Nora rethought. Or maybe he was like that, and I just didn't see it. So, wondered Miss Elm, looking at Nora, what are you feeling? Like I still want to die. I have wanted to die for quite a while. I have carefully calculated that the pain of me living, as the bloody disaster that is myself, is greater than the pain anyone else will feel if I were to die. In fact, I'm sure it would be a relief. I'm not useful to anyone. I was bad at work. I've disappointed everyone. I am a waste of a carbon footprint, to be honest. I hurt people. I have no one left. And not even poor old Volts, who died because I couldn't look after a cat properly. I want to die. My life is a disaster. And I want it to end. I'm not cut out for living. There is no point going through all of this. Because I'm clearly destined to be unhappy in those other lives too. That is just me. I add nothing. I'm wallowing in self-pity. I want to die. Miss Elm studied Nora hard, as if reading a passage in a book she had read before, but just found it contained a new meaning. Want, she told her in a measured tone, is an interesting word. It means lack. Sometimes, if we fill that lack with something else, the original want disappears entirely. Maybe you have a lack problem rather than a want problem. Maybe there's a life that you really want to live. I thought that was it, the one with Dan, but it wasn't. No, it wasn't, but that is just one of your possible lives, and 1 into affinity is a very small fraction indeed. Every possible life I could live has me in it, so it's not really every possible life. Miss Elm wasn't listening. Now tell me, where do you want to go now? Nowhere, please. Do you need another look at the Book of Regrets? Nora scrunched her nose and gave a minute shake of her head. She remembered the feeling of being suffocated by so much regret. No. What about your cat? What was his name again? Voltaire. It was a bit pretentious, and he wasn't really a pretentious cat, so I just called him Volts for short. Sometimes Voltsy if I was feeling jovial, which was rare, obviously. I couldn't even finalize a name for a cat. Well, you said you were bad at having a cat. What would you have done differently? Nora thought. She had the very real sense that Miss Elm was playing some kind of game with her, but she also wanted to see her cat again. And not simply a cat with the same name. In fact, she wanted it more than anything. Okay, I'd like to see the life where I kept Voltaire indoors. My Voltaire. I'd like the life where I didn't try to kill myself and where I was a good cat owner. And I didn't let him out into the road last night. I'd like that life. Just for a little while. That life exists, doesn't it? The only way to learn is to live. Nora looked around and found herself lying in her own bed. She checked her watch. It was 1 minute past midnight. She switched on her light. This was her exact life, but it wasn't going to be better, because Voltaire was going to be alive. Her real Voltaire. But where is he? Volts! She climbed out of bed. Volts! She looked all over her flat and couldn't find him anywhere. The rain patted against the windows. That much hadn't changed. Her new box of antidepressants was out in the kitchen unit. The electric panel stood by the wall, silent. Voltsy! There was her yucca plant and her 3 tiny potted cacti. There were her bookshelves, with exactly the same mix of philosophy books and novels and untried yoga manuals and rockstar biographies, pop science books, an old National Geographic with a shark on the cover, and a 5-month-old copy of Elle magazine, which she'd bought mainly for the Ryan Bailey interview. No new additions in a long time. There was a bowl still full of cat food. She looked everywhere, calling his name. It was only when she went back to her bedroom and looked under the bed that she saw him. Volts! The cat wasn't moving. As her arms weren't long enough to reach him, she moved the bed. Voltsy, come on, Voltsy, she whispered. But the moment she touched his cold body, she knew, and she was flooded with sadness and confusion. She immediately found herself back in the midnight library, facing Miss Elm, who was sat this time in a comfy chair, deeply absorbed in one of the books. I don't understand, Nora told her. Miss Elm kept her eyes on the page she was reading. There will be many things you don't understand. I asked for the life in which Voltaire was still alive. Actually, you didn't. What? She put her book down. You asked for the life where you kept him indoors. That is an entirely different thing. Is it? Yes, entirely. You see, if you'd have asked for the life where he was still alive, I would have had to have said no. But why? Because it doesn't exist. I thought every life exists, every possible life. You see, it turns out that Voltaire had a serious case of, she read carefully from the book, restrictive cardiomyopathy, a severe case of it, which he was born with, and which he was destined to cause his heart to go out at a young age. But he was hit by a car. There's a difference, Nora, between dying in a road and being hit by a car. In your root life, Voltaire lived longer than any other life, except the one you just encountered, where he died only 3 hours ago. Although he had a tough few years, the year you had him was the best time of his life. Voltaire had so much worse lives, believe me. You didn't even know his name a moment ago. Now you know he had restrictive cardio whatever? I knew his name. And it wasn't a moment ago. It was the same moment. Check your watch. Why did you lie? I wasn't lying. I asked you what your cat name was. I never said I didn't know what your cat's name was. Do you understand the difference? I just wanted you to say his name so you would feel something. Nora was hot with agitation now. That's even worse. You sent me into that life knowing Volts would be dead, and Volts was dead, so nothing changed. Miss Elm's eyes twinkled again. Except you? What do you mean? Well, you don't see yourself as a bad cat owner anymore. You looked after him as well as he could have been looked after. He loved you so much as you loved him, and maybe he didn't want you to see him die. You see, cats know. They understand when their time is up. He went outside because he was going to die, and he knew it. Nora tried to take this in. Now she thought about it. There hadn't been any external signs of damage on her cat's body. She had just jumped to the same conclusion that Ash had jumped to. That a dead cat on the road was probably dead because the road. And if a surgeon could think that, a mere layperson would think that too. 2 plus 2 equals car accident. Poor Volts, Nora muttered mournfully. Mrs. Elm smiled, like a teacher who saw a lesson being understood. He loved you, Nora. You looked after him as well as anyone could. Go look at the last page in the Book of Regrets. Nora could see that the book was lying on the floor. She knelt on the floor beside it. I don't want to open it again. Don't worry, it will be safer this time. Just stick to the last page. Once she had flicked to the last page, she saw one of her very last regrets. I was bad at looking after Voltaire. Slowly disappeared from the page. The letters fading like a retreating strangers in the fog. Nora closed the book before she could feel anything bad happen. So you see, sometimes regrets aren't based on fact at all. Sometimes regrets are just... She searched for the appropriate term and found it. A load of bullshit. Nora tried to think back to her school days, to remember if Miss Elm had ever said the word bullshit before, as she was pretty sure she hadn't. But I still don't get why you let me go into that life if you knew Volts was going to be dead anyway. You could have told me. You could have just told me I wasn't a bad cat owner. Why didn't you? Because, Nora, sometimes the only way to learn is to live. Sounds hard. Take a seat, Miss Elm told her. A proper seat. It's not right you kneeling on the floor. And Nora turned to see a chair behind her that she hadn't noticed before. An antique chair, mahogany and buttoned leather, Edwardian maybe, with a brass bookstand attached to one arm. Give yourself a moment. Nora sat down. She stared at her watch. No matter how much of the moment she gave herself, it stayed being midnight. I don't like this. One life of sadness was enough. What is the point of risking more? Fine, Miss Elm shrugged. What? Let's do nothing then. You can just stay here in the library with all those lives waiting on the shelves and not choose one. Nora sensed Miss Elm was playing some kind of game, but she went along with it. Fine. So Nora just stood there, while Miss Elm picked up her book again. It seemed unfair to Nora that Miss Elm could read the lives without falling into them. Time went by, although technically, of course, it didn't. Nora could have stayed there forever without getting hungry or thirsty or tired. But she could, it seemed, get bored. As time stood still, Nora's curiosity about the lives around her slowly grew. It turned out to be near impossible to stand in a library and not want to pull things off the shelf. "Why can't you just give me a life, it's a good one?" she said suddenly. "That is not how this library works." Nora had another question. "Surely, in most lives, I will be asleep now, won't I?" "In many, yes." "So what happens then?" "You sleep, and then you wake up in that life. It's nothing to worry about. But if you are nervous, you can try a life where it's another time." "What do you mean?" "Well, it's not nighttime everywhere, is it?" "What?" "There are an infinite number of possible universes in which you live." "You are really saying that all exist on Greenwich Mean Time?" "Of course not," said Nora. She realized she was about to cave in and choose another life. She thought of the humpback whales. She thought of the unanswered message. "I wish I could have gone to Australia with Izzy. I would like to experience that life." "Very good choice." "What? It's a very good life?" "Oh, I didn't say that. I merely feel that you might be getting better at choosing." "So it's a bad life." "I didn't say that either." And the shelves sped into motion again. They stopped a few seconds afterwards. "Ah, yes, there it is," Miss Elm said, taking a book from the second to the bottom shelf. She recognized it instantly, which was odd, seeing that it all looked almost identical to the others around it. She handed it to Nora affectionately, as if it was a birthday gift. "There you go. You know what to do." Nora hesitated. "What if I'm dead?" "Sorry? I mean, in another life. There must be other lives in which I died before today." Miss Elm looked intrigued. "Isn't that what you wanted?" "Well, yes, but you have died an infinite number of times before today, yes. Car accident, drug overdose, drowning, a bout of fatal food poisoning, choking on an apple, choking on a cookie, choking on a vegan hot dog, choking on a non-vegan hot dog. Every illness it was possible for you to catch or contract. You have died in every way you can, at any time you could. So I could open a book and just die? No, not instantaneously. As with Voltaire, the only lives available here are, well, lives. I mean, you could die in that life, but you won't have died before you enter the life, because this midnight library is not one of ghosts. It is not a library of corpse. It is a library of possibility. And death is the opposite of possibility. Understand? I think so." And Nora stared at the book she had been handed. Confit green, smooth textured and embossed, with the broad and frustrating meaningless title, My Life. She opened it and saw a blank page. So she moved to the next page and wondered what was going to happen this time. The swimming pool was a little busier than normal. And then she was there. Well, that was episode 4 of our read along, read aloud sessions with the Neighborhood Book Club. Thank you for joining us and reading along with The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. And we'll see you guys next time.